So this is one of the oldest and also the original Ratnakuta or Kunchotsepa Sutra. Here the title is not Ratnakuta, but rather Kāśyapaparivarta, Kāśyapa, Mahakāśyapa. He was the chief disciple of Buddha. After Buddha, he was like the second regent to Buddha. And because originally it was the real Ratnakuta Sutra, so that's why many of the Indian great masters, sometimes they quote by saying from Ratnakuta. So usually, almost 80% or maybe 75% comes from this sutra. And even in Tibet, usually when we talk about Ratnakuta Sutra, then it means the whole collection. But even the Tibetan scholars are influenced by the Indian tradition, so that's why even the Tibetan tradition, sometimes Tibetan translators, sometimes they would say from Kunchotsikpa. What they think is, what they believe is, okay, because this too is also Kunchotsikpa, part of the whole Kunchotsikpa. So of course saying that from Kunchotsikpa, you can also mean this. But historically speaking, this was known as Kunchotsikpa or Ratnakuta because it was the first sutra that was named as Kunchotsikpa. And then there were also other sutras, like I said this morning, that there were other sutras which were named as Kunchotsikpa. And there are a lot of people who have done research about this sutra. And in some way, I think Buddhism really kind of, it really declined a lot. And, in terms of people, in terms of practice, in terms of even the Dharma itself, over time it become corrupted or whatever. Because originally speaking, during the time of Buddha, whatever Buddha taught, I really like the Pali Sutras. It's so simple, so practical, easy to understand, full of wisdom, And then there were Mahayana Sutras, which are also, full of wisdom, full of compassion, full of inspirations and so on. And then over time, even the sutras maybe, I don't know, maybe. If these sutras were not taught by Buddha, then some of these sutras doesn't have much meaning. It's the same thing. But these old sutras, they are like, actually we might think like, okay, new sutras must be better if they were really written by people, because there must be some development of the ideas, philosophy, ideas and so on. But it's actually the opposite. The very old sutras are full of wisdom, very inspiring, not too much repetition and so on. And as this sutra is very old, and also the meaning is so beautiful, If I'm really good enough to teach sutras, I think I might maybe, somebody, a great master can really teach this sutra for months and months, as something like that. And this has got, the first Buddha talks about, here, almost most of them, sometimes Buddha would say, there are two things that one should understand. For this one, there are 4 types of generosity, something like this, always. Sometimes he would say two things, 3 things. And here, most of them, like 4 things, there are 4 things, there are 4 things, there are 4 things, 4 things. And it is a commentary by one Indian master called Stiramati, Lotin. So according to Tibetan tradition, the whole Kunchotsikpa, the 49, came from his memorization, because it was saved by him, because he memorized all of them and written down. So it was saved by him. And then according to Tibetan tradition, they also talk about, he wrote commentary to each of those 49 sutras. But I think only one that survived is maybe the commentary to this one. I also thought there are few Indian commentaries. But when I checked Tenju, the translation of Indian commentaries into Tibetan, I haven't found any other I haven't found any other Indian commentary, but I didn't get much time to check thoroughly. And so here, first Buddha, in prose style, he talks about 4 things, and then, and most of them, like Buddha says, it's not even Kāśyapa get up, and usually they would get up, do 3 prostrations, and whatever, and then request for the teaching or ask a question. But here it's just Buddha. There are a lot of people, but Buddha is just directly talking with the Mahakāśyapa, and everyone else is just listening. So there is a first dialogue in prose, and then that same meaning is taught in verse, or maybe told by Buddha himself, or I don't know. But the researchers, because they found old manuscripts of this sutra, and maybe they have also compared with the different versions of the translation. So what they found is in some of these sutras, the verses are not there. It's just full of prose. So some of these researchers, they have the opinion that maybe the verses were added later. But usually in many of the sutras, they have this style, like something's taught in verse, and then there's more like a summary, maybe taught even more beautifully. It's more like a summary. And many researchers, they have this door to opener, whether the verses were really in the original manuscript or not. And actually, the Indian commentary, I was really thinking to talk a little bit about this sutra. Really wanted to give the overall introduction about this sutra. But I got occupied with some works today. And the funny thing is that work will also be completed when I finish the Kāśyapaparivarta. So, my 12 works like... So anyway, and the commentary by Siddhiramati, usually Siddhiramati's works are quite clear, really, very concise. But I don't know why, I found the sutra itself much more easy to understand than the commentary. Commentary is quite complicated. Usually many of the sutras are really very simple and quite easy to understand, really, quite easy to understand. The only sutra that was so hard for me to understand. There are 4 main sutras for the mind-only school. Avatam Shaka, Lanka Avatara. I don't know the Sanskrit name. There's one sutra called Jintupuku. When I read Jintupuku, the good thing is that it wasn't that long. It wasn't that big. Before that, I used to think, I'm quite, I'm intelligent enough, I can understand the sutra, that means I'm quite intelligent enough, When I get here, oh my goodness, I couldn't understand nothing. What is even discussing? Not even a close idea about what is discussed here, That really discouraged me. I was like, no way. You follow the sutras like that, I would rather not read because I'm not getting anything. But this type of sutra is really quite easy to understand. And because I really want to do my best to promote or serve sutras in general, and particularly Kuncho Tsepa, I feel some connection, very strong connection. And I hope one day, I think when I say this, maybe I even have to cover my mic, but I hope I can write a commentary in Tibetan because, this is so beautiful. And then because most of whatever my talk were more like, were more of oral transmission. So, and also because this one is the most important one from many point of view. So, to make a, to make a connection with this sutra, I just want to point out few important points and then discuss with you, maybe more like a remind. Then we all have, oh, there's something like that, or maybe at least we will have, hope you all have the feeling that at least he explained the original Kuncho Tsikpa. He just, he didn't just read the blah, 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 and then left. He taught something, he explained something. And then I hope you will forgive me for that. And then in the beginning, the Siddhiramati, he explains, something in his commentary. There are only a few important points that I got from his commentary because I couldn't understand much. And one thing is he says this question. So if you say you are going to talk about Kuncho Tsikpa, Ratnakutra, what do you mean by Ratnakutra? And then Siddhiramati, he asked this question and then he answered it by saying Ratnakutra means the collection of Mahayana Dharma. Ratna means Mahayana Dharma because Mahayana Dharma practices are very precious. And Kuta means actually heap or collection, the gathering. And then Siddhiramati says its collection is gathering because it has the complete, overall important points of Mahayana practices. So that's why he says it's Kuncho Tsikpa. More like he's saying that this sutra is more like the summary or the essential meaning of the all practices of Mahayana Buddhism. So that's why it's Ratnakuta. So if we understand the meaning of Kuncho Tsikpa in that way, then of course it can also apply to, larger than this particular sutra. So that's why I think it makes sense. And then here first, Buddha says, if you have 4 dharmas, then your wisdom will be declined. First of all, the first conversation begins like that. Kāśyapa, if you have these 4 dharmas, the wisdom will be declined. And then these 4 dharmas are, Buddha says, not respecting the dharma and not respecting the teacher who is teaching the dharma. And then even those who teach dharma, they are trying not to share the important points because they want to keep it for maybe their own research purpose or whatever. And these days, in the past, I also used to think that I'm really quite open. I can teach whatever I know. I don't have this stingy feeling when it comes to knowledge or dharma. But then when I start doing the research, then I also become like that. Because at the research, if you write something, if you found something, you can't just tell people. Because if you found something, if you really discovered something like breakthrough, and if you just randomly tell people, and they would write or tell people that many of them, they really do like that. They don't give any credit at all. I know quite many people, some Khenpos or whatever, they would ask me, have you written something like that? Have you taught about this? Please, if you have, please send me. And when I send them, and then they give, they are teaching other people, pretending that everything is learned by themselves, Then I think maybe, of course, from Dharma point of view, I'm not that good, but I don't think they are also good either, So it happens. So I also got this problem, ego problem. But I think people should respect, But usually whenever, I teach, I really try my best to, whatever knowledge I have, I share it. So here Buddha says, if you're hiding the knowledge or whatever, and then your wisdom will be declined. And to those people, to those people who want to follow Dharma and practice Dharma, if you cause obstacles to their Dharma practice, and then if you are, as a teacher, if you are praising yourself and criticizing maybe especially other teachers, then what happens is your wisdom will be declined. And then Siddhiramati here, he says, the reason why Buddha starts this teaching from, talking about what makes our wisdom declined is because if we are declined from the wisdom, then we will be declined from everything. That's true, If our mentality is wrong, if our view or thinking is wrong, then whatever we do, maybe sometimes by chance, maybe we do something right, but overall, there's very high danger that we will get worse and worse. And then opposite of that, Buddha says, if you have Kāśyapa, if you have these 4 things, and then your wisdom will be developed. And these 4 things are paying respect to the Dharma and teacher who teach Dharma, and making offerings or whatever to the teachers, and whatever you have learned from others, you teach other people, share the knowledge to other people. And the more you learn, more you hear the teachings, more your wisdom or intelligence will be increased. So that's why you should be so diligent when it comes to seeking more Dharma. That as when your head or hair is caught by fire, you will be so diligent. You can't be lazy. There is no time to be lazy. So in the same way, you have to be so passionate about searching Dharma. I think really loving Dharma, interested in Dharma, all these are really, very important sign that you really have developed some Dharma mind. I think it's very important. In some way, receiving oral transmission, these kind of things are quite boring. Maybe doesn't make much sense in some way. But if you are interested even in that kind of thing, if you want to receive more oral transmission, want to receive more teachings, then it's very likely that you really have developed some Dharma mind. And when you really have developed Dharma mind, then it becomes very stable. Okay. The next point, I'm just trying to share whatever I think interesting or helpful. But I have got my own mentality, So whatever I think meaningful, interesting, doesn't mean, that is the best one, and that whatever I'm trying to neglect or whatever I'm not talking, they're not good. We shouldn't, we shouldn't think like that. And then Buddha says there are 4 things, there are 4 delusions of Bodhisattva. Buddha is saying there are 4 delusions of Bodhisattva. And that is, the first thing is Buddha is saying, beings who are not matured enough, spiritually or just generally, if we rely on them, then that would be delusion. Practically speaking, it's quite nice, The people who are not really matured, and people who are not really, dedicated to something meaningful. They're just wasting their time, or they're just trying to take advantage from you and whatever. If you rely upon them, then of course it's a delusion, And then and then those people who don't even want to practice, who don't even believe, and then if a bodhisattva is, giving too much teachings to them as if they are going to practice, and then that is the delusion of bodhisattva. So that might happen. But the good thing is these days, even the teachers, they don't want to practice, so, it's good. It's equal. And then one delusion is those people who want to practice Mahayana Buddhism or Vajrayana Buddhism, whatever, if you keep telling them that you should practice this and that, and then that would also be delusion. And the fact that if Bodhisattva, look down on those who are practicing diligently, who has very, very good morality. If you do that, and then bodhisattva, that is also one of the delusion. I think that's quite interesting. And then also Buddha is saying there what is the English word? Confiscated, or pretending, more like. And then Buddha is saying there are 4 types of fake bodhisattvas, or let's say fake. They're pretending like a bodhisattva, but actually they are not bodhisattva. And these 4 types of bodhisattva, fake bodhisattvas, are, they are trying to teach people, they are trying to give teachings, give empowerments or whatever. But actually they are not interested in the teaching. They are interested in the, profit, they are interested in the offerings, they are interested in the respect and so on. These are fake. And then even when they are teaching, even when they are learning or something, they are more interested about the words, beautiful words, how to say, how to tell, But they are not interested about the essence of Dharma. These are also fake. And then if the bodhisattva, they're constantly doing whatever Dharma practice or whatever he or she is doing, but deep down he or she is only thinking about my own self and not thinking about others, this is also fake bodhisattva. And then if there is a bodhisattva, who claims to be bodhisattva, but never interested about, staying alone, spending time alone to practice, always busy with other people, this is also fake bodhisattva. I think then maybe we have a lot of fake bodhisattvas. But even having fake bodhisattva is quite good, Then we can change a little bit. If they says, I don't even want to be bodhisattva, then what can we do? And then Buddha says there are 4 pure qualities of bodhisattva, and that's also interesting. One of the pure quality of bodhisattva, Buddha says, this bodhisattva will understand and accept the idea of emptiness, at the same time is also very devoted to follow the law of karma. It's quite difficult because from emptiness point of view, nothing exists. But then from when we talk about karma, we talk about the cause and the law of cause and result. So a true bodhisattva will follow both of these rules. And then next, Buddha says, the second thing is, the bodhisattva will understand the selflessness. There's no such thing as I, me, and you. But at the same time, bodhisattva would also have a very strong compassion to everyone. And the third quality is, bodhisattva would encourage everyone to achieve enlightenment, and then he or she will also be so determined to remain in this samsara to benefit other beings. And the fourth one is, the bodhisattva would give whatever he or she has to others, but then never expecting anything in return. And these are also very important. Not just bodhisattva, I think even to practice Dharma, we need to have that kind of quality. And then now Buddha is giving a lot of, using metaphors to explain the quality of bodhisattva. So here, I think first Buddha is using the very earth as the metaphor for being a bodhisattva. And I found this, this kind of approach is really inspiring. So Buddha says, if you think about so many things, like the earth, or the space, or the sun and moon, or the water, or the wind, or the tree, they're doing so much for us. The trees are also doing a lot of job for us, but we never expect anything in return. Sun is also doing a lot of things. Maybe moon too. But I once used to think, I like sun more than moon. Moon is just beautiful, not that useful really. So many points, people, moon. And even though the moon is beautiful, but whatever the last rays of light, even a little bit of shining comes from the sun, I don't like moon that much. Sun is doing a lot. That's what I think. So anyway, all of them are doing a lot, the very year. Everything's doing a lot. But they don't expect anything in return. They never got tired. Why? Because it's their nature. It's sun's nature to give rays of light. It's the nature of wind or oxygen, give us oxygen. And the river, that is the nature of river to, quench thirst and so on. And trees, it's their nature. So a bodhisattva also should understand it. This is what Buddha means. Just as earth, sun and trees, their nature is to benefit other beings, so benefiting other beings should be a nature of that bodhisattva. And if your very nature is to benefit other beings, why do you even expect anything in return or, Because that's you, Your very nature is kind and caring and, good person. Then you're just being yourself, that's all, They might not appreciate it. It's so easy for me to say, okay, I also faced that challenge. I think, we might not get anything in return, but as, being an ordinary human being, I also feel like, politeness and appreciation are really so important. When we do something good for other people, we don't need anything in return, really. At least that's normally, when I do something, sometimes of course I also have to be a little bit smart. But quite often when I try to do something good for other people, I do with good motivation. But it's quite discouraging if, they don't appreciate it. Then we don't even know whether we should do it or not, right? It's not that easy. But, because we are very ordinary human beings, so we have these challenges. But whatever the case, no matter how less people appreciate it, how much people criticize this, we don't have much choice. Being good is really hard, but being bad is much harder. We have no choice. It's almost like we have no choice but to help other people. Otherwise, the environment will be bad. We won't have good connection with people. Our life will not be meaningful. There's no choice. Whether people like it or not, we have to be good. No choice. So at least Buddha is, using this idea, and I think it's really, he's using all these beautiful, beautiful examples, like crops, like the moon, all of them. Okay. And then he's talking about the power of having wisdom and skillfulness. So here, dealing with the negative emotions, especially desire and attachment. That is one thing which makes Mahayana Buddhism different from the Theravada Buddhism or Shirvakayana. Because in Shirvakayana, desire, attachment is completely wrong. It's harmful. And they also have their own point. Because what happens is, anger is a very sudden emotion. Simtraksha is tired, let him sleep. Anger is a very strong negative emotion, but it's very temporary, and we won't be angry for a long time. So even though the anger is very destructive, but it's not that dangerous because it doesn't often come, at least for most people. And then also ignorance is very bad because ignorance is like like the illness. Or more like darkness, we don't really know where to go, okay? Ignorance is quite easy to understand. And the problem with the desire is, if you have desire and attachment, it's like you're bound to that thing. Someone is in the prison, and no matter how bad the prison is, but if that person is attached to the prison, then he himself will put him in the jail. There's no way that he can go because he doesn't want to go. And if you don't want to go, what can other people do? That's the problem of desire. It never lets you go, It's almost like what is the leash, right? Dog's leash. We can't go. That is the problem of attachment, right? If I'm attached to someone from India or from Tibet or somewhere, no matter how far I will go, I will be attached to that person. I don't really have the freedom. That is the power. So that's why according to Theravada Buddhism, desire is bad because if we have strong desire and attachment, then what happens is we can't achieve liberation because we don't even want to move forward. That's the problem, right? And then, according to Mahayana Buddhism, why desire and attachment has positive side, why they are kind of open for that, is with desire and attachment, there are two good things. Desire and attachment have two good things. One is, at least if you have desire and attachment for somebody, at least you want to help, you want to be a nice person, right? If you are attracted to somebody, no matter how bad you are, you will become a very good person, the number one good person. That is the power of attraction and attachment, right? Not really because you are so good, but because, your whole attachment and desires making you a good person. But if you're not careful, what happens is, that is just the power of attachment and desire. So once things doesn't go in the way that we want, that can also be very dangerous. That can also be transformed into anger, that very thing, because it's selfish. Even that very attachment and love and whatever, selfish. So that's why it can be very, very dangerous. But at least desire and attachment has this quality that it can go with compassion and attachment, compassion and love. So bodhisattvas, understanding emptiness, will try not understand the emptiness and selflessness, will try not to be attached to that person, but with the little attachment, will use that attachment to love that sentient being. And when it comes to love and attachment, I think it's so tricky. The tricky thing is, ordinary people confuse desire, attachment, and love, and then they think they really love, but actually it's just desire and attachment. And the religious people like monastery, like monks and nuns, we also, we try our best not to be attached to anyone, not to have desire to anyone. So then quite often what happens is, because we also think, okay, the love is desire, love is nothing but attachment. And quite often what happens is we become very cold. We lose all the connection. Almost like we don't want to care anybody. We don't like to anybody. We don't want to care anybody. We don't want to think about anybody. In the end, what happens is we become so cold. And that's also, I think, extreme. So this affection, compassion, love is very tricky. It can also be like, it's maybe like a sword. You can go with the desire and the attachment. The desire is, the love is also, the genuine love is also so difficult to recognize. It can go with too many things, right? But I think, I hope, by practicing Buddhism, practitioner are not too attached to whatever their families or friends. At the same time, we don't end up being too cold, not caring family, not caring friends, because it's a nature that we all need love, we all need compassion, we all need connection. That's human nature. Anyway, so that's why in Mahayana Buddhism, sometimes you talk about, keeping a small portion of attachment. And the other good thing about the attachment is that attachment can serve as the seed to be born in this samsara again. So because bodhisattvas, for them it's so easy to be born into this samsara again, because they can benefit sentient beings only if they are born in this samsara. And that's also for them, it's so important to be born as a human being or animals or something. Like, the Chinese, they can come here, but if I can't see him, I can't even talk him, and he can't tell me what should I do. But if someone like Karmapa comes here and tells me, okay, you're teaching something wrong, you should teach other people, I can hear it, I can change it, right? Because he's in a human body. So that's why for bodhisattvas, this human body, or whatever physical body, the real physical body is very important. And for that, the desire or small desire attachment is very important. But when it comes to desire, the bodhisattvas are allowed to have this desire when they can even sacrifice themselves. We can't use that excuse, okay? They are talking about sacrificing their path in life and so on. So that's why Buddha here, it's a very famous quote, which Buddha says, for the bodhisattvas, the negative emotions are like, what do you say for lu? I know lu. Compost. Whatever you put.
Compost or manure. Compost.
Compost. Okay, compost. Understanding, right? Whatever, when we plant something, we use the compost, right? So Buddha here, he says, for the bodhisattvas, negative emotions are like a compost, because by using negative emotions, you can develop a lot of virtues. By using, desire, whatever negativity, attachment and so on, you can develop compassion, By using maybe anger, I don't know how to say it, maybe you can develop more patience and so on. So that's why, according to Mahayana Buddhism, the path of Bodhisattva is very skillful. The main skillful thing is using negative emotions. And sometimes they echo in some of the Vajrayana Buddhism, because Vajrayana Buddhism also have all these, different sorts of things. And so they also quote this one. This quote, and I think one of the main thing which makes this portion of the sutra, famous in Tibetan Buddhism, mainly because of that quotation. Because, whenever we talk about all these union stuffs in Vajrayana, then we have to, at that time, then we have to go for refuge in Sutra tradition. And once we are safe from that, and then we leave the sutra. There's this quote. That's the very famous quote. And the next subject that Buddha is discussing is the middle way. And the middle way that is taught in this sutra, as I said, I don't remember, this morning or yesterday, is also one of the main thing in this sutra which made this sutra famous. And the middle way itself, I hope I can stop myself from going too far. But it's almost like the middle way is the first thing that Buddha really, the first part the Buddha really found. Up to that part, he was learning everything from the other teachers, but when he really learned following the middle way, that was really the most important realization he had. And that is also one of the best teachings that he gave for us, because when we talk about path of Buddhism, it's in some way it's really the best thing about being Buddhist. What is the main part of Buddhist? Is, we're not trying to be too hard on ourselves. We're not, we're not saying that pure Dharma is not eating and not drinking and, not sleeping, not wearing clothes, torturing yourself. No. Why should you be torturing yourself? Why should you torture yourself? All right? And then we are also not talking about, telling people, encouraging people to be extremely rich, extremely famous or whatever, because it's unnecessary. So the path of Buddhism is really, whether it's for lay person, whether it's for monastic sanghas, it's really following the middle way. And so here, and then when this middle way, initially, which was, discussed by Buddha as a way of life, and then later on, it was discussed, applied to the philosophical viewpoint, philosophical view. So then, in that case, the two extremes are, saying that something that exists. If I say it doesn't exist, that extreme. If something doesn't exist, and if I say it exists, that extreme, because these two are wrong. And then we have to find a middle way. And so there are two philosophical schools of Theravada Buddhism. What they said is, not everything exists. But also it's not like nothing exists. So they said, some things exist. And if you ask them question, what is some things? They said, among the forms, the smallest unit of atom exists. So something exists. And then there are only form and mind. So the mind at this current moment, this very moment, this exists. And the rest of them doesn't really exist. So for them, this is the middle path, middle way. Because they are not saying that everything exists. Also, they are not saying that nothing exists. They are saying that only a few things exist and most of them don't exist. This is their middle way. And Mahayana Buddhism have two philosophical schools. One is called middle way, one is called mind only. And then mind only's approach is same like those two schools. They said, not everything exists. Something exists, and that is the mind. So they are not rejecting everything, also they are not accepting everything, and for them, that becomes the middle way. And then for the middle way school, the proper middle way school, for them, saying everything exists, really exists, is extreme. saying that nothing exists at all is also extreme. And the middle way is everything exists, but relatively on some level. It doesn't really exist on the ultimate level. That is the middle way. Once we found this middle way, then we can keep going. I hope. So it's almost like, for me, the most helpful example is the paper money. Paper money. Paper money is money. It's just because some government said this is money, But if it's really money by its nature, no. Once the government say we are going to stop this, circulating this money and we're going to stop using it, whoever has that money, if you don't return back to the bank or whatever, before September, whatever, then we will not accept it. Once they make that decision, if we still have maybe 100,000 whatever dollars, it's not going to work. You can't tell people this is money, right? No, it's not money. Nothing has changed. It's just government rule changed. So we can't say paper money is not money because it functions as money, relatively speaking. But if you really think this is money, then we will have the problem. We can't really say when the government says from September, from October, we're not going to accept all these pounds which has a queen's picture. And then after many years, how can you say that this is not money? You yourself said this is money, There's no point, right? Yep. So that's why middle way idea is also very important in this sutra. And then there's one important thing. I'm not sure if I can put this clearly, but this is, at least I believe this is really, really important. So even in these, it's discussed. And that idea is, in Buddhism, we have something called three mokshas, or three mukha moksha or something in Sanskrit. If you translate into English, it will be three doors of liberation, three gates of liberation or something, which are Tongbani, emptiness, Tsema meba, lack of characteristic, Mompa meba, non-aspiration or something. Okay. There are such things. And unfortunately, I think even though it's, many people have heard it, but not many people, even in Tibetan Buddhism, not many people really, understand the value of this. I really have this feeling. So, what this point means is, first there is the emptiness. Emptiness means not having true existence. Basically, according to middle way school, that what emptiness means. But, the emptiness also, this idea also comes from the Shivakan tradition. It also comes in, all these philosophical schools, and they all have their own way of interpreting it. But emptiness, basically, according to middle way school, it means having no real existence. In all the way, there's no such thing which exists from any aspect or any perspective. Everything just exists on relative level. So that's what emptiness means. And then if we don't understand the importance of three gates of liberation, what happens is we think, according to Buddhism, everything is emptiness. That is the ultimate truth. I'm sure so many people think like that. This is the ultimate truth. That's what I should understand. That's what I should meditate. Everything is emptiness. But the problem with this kind of view is, according to Buddha, even thinking it's emptiness is also wrong. We shouldn't be, because my understanding is when Buddha said 3 gates of liberation, in Vajrayana, there's there are 2 types of mandala. One is like triangular kind of mandala, and then inside of that mandala there is the real palace. So there are 2 mandalas, and the first mandala, it has triangular shape, and that represents the 3 doors of liberation, or 3 gates of liberation. So like these 3 sides, right? But I think the real meaning of 3 gates of liberation are more like 3 doors. First there's the emptiness, door of emptiness. Then there's the door of lack of characteristic. And then after that, there's the door of non-aspiration. Okay, there are 3 doors. So first we have to enter the emptiness door. When we enter the emptiness door, what we have to understand is nothing have true existence. Okay. And when we enter the next gate, what we are supposed to understand is that things are not also emptiness. And even thinking they are emptiness is also wrong. Even thinking every phenomena emptiness is also wrong. Okay. Now, the tricky thing is, like I said earlier, if I have a pen or, okay, let's say, okay, this book is big. Okay, this cover is big, quite big, but compared to this plate, this cover is not big, right? So what happens is, this is not big. This is not big. This is big compared to this. Now, compared to this plate is big, but compared to the book, this plate is not big. Right? Some of you are bigger than me, so big people, but they may be bigger than you guys. And then compared to that, you guys are not big. So if we look at everything, we can't really find something that is really big. Everything is, whatever label we give, it's just a label. It's, my father is father in relation to me. He's not father by himself, right? I can't say I'm father because I don't have children. So my father is father in relation to me, and everything's like that. Whole thing. So now what happened is, even the emptiness is emptiness in relation to non-emptiness. Emptiness is also not emptiness by itself. We label it as emptiness. Let's say if there is something that is not emptiness, or at least we have this imagination, we have this concept. Non-emptiness, like real existence. And compared to that, we give this notion, we have this concept, we have this label, emptiness. But in reality, emptiness is also not emptiness by itself. So then when we think about this, even the existence is existent only in relation to non-existent. And even this concept of non-existence also appears because of the existent. They also relation, dependent. So if you look at things in this way, there is no such thing which really has this true being. And then, if you don't understand that, and if you think everything's okay. This is, if we, the very typical thinking, okay, this is not cup according to Mahayana Buddhism, according to Middle Way school. This is not Bu, according to Middle Way school, because it's emptiness, but it's really emptiness. What happens? Then you're stuck on one concept. But if you say, this is not big compared to this one, because this is just a concept, thinking that this is big is a concept in relation to this, then thinking that this is emptiness is also a concept based on the idea that maybe there's something, let's say there's non-emptiness phenomena. So then, why this is so important? Why this idea is so important? Partly because when we talk about Buddha, when we talk about wisdom, we're talking about understanding the reality, the ultimate reality. Of course, this is impermanent. This is reality. Reality, it's really impermanent. But we don't stop there. The reason is because that is not the ultimate reality of it. The ultimate reality of this is non-existent. But if we go even deeper, even thinking this is non-existent is also a concept that we are giving. Right? So some way, we're not really reaching to the ultimate truth of it. And from other way, as long as we have this concept, it opens the space or door for arising any discursive or deluded thought. And that deluded thought can bring negative emotions. So what happens? Okay, so you first we all think everything exists, I exist, book exists, they really exist on the ultimate level. We really have that kind of feeling. And then we understood emptiness and we opened the first door, we entered in and we understood that nothing truly exists. And then we entered the second door. When we entered the second door, then we understood that things are not even emptiness. Even thinking things are emptiness is also a wrong notion, ultimately speaking. And then when you understand that, what happens is, you open the next door. When you open the next door, then what happens is, first of all, things don't even have true existence. Secondly, there's no such thing that we can label as this or that. Then what will happen is, you will understand, in reality, we talk about samsara, we talk about nirvana, we talk about virtue, we talk about non-virtue, we talk about negative emotions, we talk about wisdom. But in reality, there's nothing to aspire. There's not really something that we have to run away or we don't want, because there is no such thing. And then that is the third door, which is non-aspiration. Usually non-aspiration, not aspiring anything, because at that point we have understood that there's nothing to aspire. So both the sattvas, when they understand it, then they're not so much interested about achieving enlightenment too, because they have understood the nature of enlightenment. They're also not so much interested about running away from samsara, because they also have understood the nature of samsara. So that's why the Buddha is discussing this very important concept of not attached to the idea of emptiness. And then here he says, being attached to the idea of emptiness is like medicine transforming into poison. Why? Because when you understood emptiness, you thought, okay, I have really understood the ultimate truth of everything. And you get stuck there. And that becomes the obstacle for you to understand really the deepest level of truth. So then if you look everything in that way, what is there in this universe that we can really say this is, this is it? On our daily life, we take it for granted. This is smoke. If some Tibetan people, whose English is not so good, they say this is pot. Everyone will laugh, This is not pot, But actually it's neither smoke nor pot on the ultimate level, right? But we got habituated with it. But if we did go deeper, then we will understand more, right? So that's why here Buddha says, if you have some selfish thought, don't need to worry. Dharma can change you. Teachers can change you. But if you really misunderstood the emptiness, then it's very difficult to change you. So that's why he says, you should be careful with the idea of, grasping on self and, holding on to existence and so on. But if you're strict on emptiness, not understanding the lack of characteristic, the ultimate truth, then it's almost like your very medicine that can save you is actually destroying you. So I think this is very, very important. And sometimes I have this, I don't want to say. Okay. And then here Buddha is also discussing about, how even the beginner of Bodhisattva path should be respected more than the advanced practitioner of Shirvakayana tradition. And this is also a very popular kind of metaphor in which Buddha says, junior or beginner of Bodhisattva should be, we should make prostration to the Bodhisattvas who are new than to advanced Bodhisattvas of Buddhas, because even usually we would worship, or we would really be happy when we see the moon first coming, then the full moon, which is already in the center of the sun, the center of the sky. This is quite popular. I think that's not. There are a lot of things to talk, okay. And then here, I would like to highlight one point, which is, here then Buddha talks about how to understand the emptiness by, looking at the nature of mind. And because this is a very old sutra, and it's a very important sutra, so I think, it's also very relevant to understand Mahamudra practices of Kagyu lineage, because the instructions that Buddha gives here are very similar to, not very similar, almost same to whatever is taught in the Mahayana Mahamudra teachings too. Examining whether the mind is, form or not, whether it has shape or not, and so on. And then few years after I became monk, I saw one quote from this sutra, which not this one. This quote I saw a few years ago, and I think this is also interesting. So here Buddha says, when somebody throws something to the dog, I I'm not sure if all the dogs do like that, but some dogs, if you throw something like a stick or whatever, the dogs would run after the stick and, bite it or whatever, angry dogs. Maybe some dogs do like that. And then Buddha says that even his followers would be also, stupid, ignorant followers do the same thing. And here the Buddha is saying, renunciation, or the reason why we go to retreat and so on. Many of us, we think, okay, I should become monk or nun because, if I don't become monk or nun, there's the danger of, negative comments, negative obstacle, negative whatever, obstacles or, obstacles for negative emotions might come from outside. I want to run away from them. I want to run away from the busy life. I don't want to run away from whatever, if nuns, I want to run away from men, if monks run away from women and so on. And then, if we say we go into the retreat because we want to run away from the disturbances or whatever. In some way, it's good, it's helpful, but what the Buddha means is what the ignorant people will do is they will only be thinking about the external conditions. Actually, the problem is inside. The desire, anger, and so on. So they might be in a retreat, but they are constantly distracted, and still they feel it's okay because they think, okay, I have come away from the distraction. But actually, distraction is already in their mind. And then, monks like us, we might think, we have become purple monk because we have run away from family life and whatever, but then we are in the monastery and then we're doing all the politics or all these corruption things, or we are not doing anything to deal with our desire and so on. Then what happens is, Buddha is saying, they're like a dog. Just like the dog only runs after effect or something, but doesn't check about from where it's coming. So in the same way, the ignorant followers will also not understand from where these negative emotions are really coming. I think that's also a very important point. And then here the Buddha talks about the importance of practicing whatever he talks about the importance of receiving as much teachings as we can and study as much teachings as we can. But at the same time, it's very important to apply them to our practices. And then he gives some metaphors which are very interesting. One of them is, and this is the one that I saw some years after I became monk and I really liked it. And there's the quote is, "When the mission jamsu chu chela, then a commission chu do jinju. Teaching chumang sibe pameba chuji jamsu ne jang song do." Which means, just as there is a person who is falling into the ocean and then not being able to drink, or maybe because the water in the ocean cannot quench the thirst, right? So this person will die in the ocean, in the water, but not also by thirst. So in the same way, those people who has a lot of knowledge, have received a lot of teachings, but if they don't practice, they will also fall into lower realms or die in the Dharma. And then Buddha says, another example is, just like a patient, keeps his medicine on his neck, holding it, but not eating it, and then he dies. In the same way, those people who have enough Dharma knowledge and whatever, if they don't practice, they will also fall into lower realms while still keeping all the practices, keeping all the dharmas that they know. And these are, I think, very important advices. I think in the end, Buddha says, in order to practice this Dharma in general, particularly Mahayana Buddhism and so on, one should be such diligent that if we have to cross the ocean by using a ship or boat, we have to have this determination, thinking that, I will make sure that this boat or ship walk properly, and I will not stop in the middle and do nothing until I cross it. So in the same way, we should look at our human life and our body as that, and we should be constantly diligent to practice Dharma so that we will achieve enlightenment. So these are some of the most important points of Kāśyapaparivarta, and there are a lot of more things to discuss, but with this, I think at least we got some idea, the essence of this sutra, and with that, we also get some idea about what really Kuncho Tsikpa is. And even from this, I think we can really understand how beautiful this, how meaningful, how profound these sutras are. For me, just being able to come here and then, to be honest, for me, I would think even just opening these sutras, I feel lucky. Really fortunate. And if I, come all the way to UK to offer oral transmission and then explain this, even if I'm not good enough to explain this, not wise enough. The best thing is, if how wonderful it is. If I have received Kuncho Tsikpa from certain great master who knows how to explain all these things, and all these explanations, came from, maybe at least from Buddha or maybe Asanga or somewhere, how nice it would be. But these days we don't have that transmission, or that lineage is almost lost. At least we still have the oral transmission, which is, we shouldn't undermine it. It's even the oral transmission, is very precious. So for me, even knowing that there is a sutra called Kāśyapaparivarta in Kuncho Tsikpa, and even knowing that in Kuncho Tsikpa, there are 49 sutras, I feel like I'm very intelligent. And if I can explain, at least today I spent 1 hour and 30 minutes or something, 25 minutes, explaining this one sutra. At least to me, it really means a lot. Really means a lot. Sometimes Buddha, he says in some of the sutras, he tells Ananda, keep it properly. Because if this sutra disappeared from the world, then you can think, I'm also died. So when we are receiving oral transmission, and when we are even discussing the sutras, we are saving some of the teachings, very important teachings of Buddha, from dying. Really, we are doing that. And at least to me, that is the most meaningful thing I can do. The most meaningful thing. So I'm really happy, and this much for today. Deye tam je ziban bam ye je anam je balan ro 西边左脸若弯若弯修就是人不马杰巴那杰就杰杰巴娘巴内巴的国内国内的玩修连拉面下巴那卡呀有啊连接就啊大些嘛呢路上人家呢有路上街上我把手拉手个定了嘛啦。